Hello, I'm Leonardo Mackenzie from the Last Inklings, and in this short series of videos I'm exploring singing whilst playing the cello. So one of the things that might not be second nature to you as a cellist, as someone who plays a melody instrument, is forming chords, which you can play pizzicato or bowed, arco. And I'm going to have a look at forming major chords. Now, previously we looked at forming the most basic version of a chord, which is a fifth chord, which is just the root note and a note a fifth above. On the cello, that's particularly easy for us because it's just on adjacent strings because we're tuned in fifths. So as an example, we could play any kind of D chord by simply playing a D and barring across to the next door note on the next string, which is A. So here I'm playing a D on the C string and an A on the G string. I'm just using one finger to press both of those notes. It's not major and it's not minor. To make it major, I need to add another note. So I've already used the C string and the G string, playing my D and A. I need to also use the D string, the next string as well. And in this case, if we were in first position, I'm adding my third finger, where it naturally falls onto an F sharp. So I now have D, A, F sharp. Together, that makes a major chord. And this is a movable shape. Wherever I recreate this on the fingerboard, I will create a major chord named after the lowest note that is sounding, in this case a D major chord. I'll show you that a little bit closer just so you can see roughly what I'm doing. So I've taken a D and an A and I'm barring them with one finger, and then I'm adding my third finger. I'll just keep my second finger out of the way so you can see, and this one is falling on the D string and it's on an F sharp. So that is a tone further down the fingerboard than where the D and the A are being pressed. And if I play those three strings, ignoring the A string for a second, I get a D major chord. For an example of another chord, if I was to move this across and put my first finger on A on the G string and bar it across to its adjacent note, which is an E on the D string, I'm now playing A and E. If I take my third finger again on the next string, this time it's going to be the A string because I'm not using the C string for a second, my third finger will naturally fall on a C sharp. That is one tone further down the fingerboard than the A and E that I'm currently playing, and it gives me a major chord, an A major chord, because A is the lowest note here. Now when you're looking at sheet music, you'll find that a major chord is just a capital letter. That is the shorthand for a major chord. Unlike a minor chord, which would have a small m written after a lowercase m as an abbreviation for minor. So if it's just a capital letter, it could even be F sharp. If it doesn't have a minor after it, it wants an F sharp major chord. And that chord shape is entirely movable. So where I played a D major chord to start with, if I was to slide it a semitone further along the fingerboard, I would get to an E flat major chord. If I went one more again, an E major chord. If I bring my first finger up again, I get to an F major chord, and so on. I could go up to fourth position and play a G major chord, barring G, D, and now my third finger is settled because I'm in fourth position on a B, G, D, B. Now there is an exception sort of to this kind of shape, and that's when you're using the open strings to form part of the chord. I'll show you what that looks like a little bit closer up. Now when I'm playing a D chord, D major chord, and I'm barring a D, A, and I'm playing an F sharp with my third finger, if I was to slide that entire shape up towards the C, at this point my first finger has become redundant because I already have a C and a G as open strings. And I've slid back my whole hand to the point that my third finger is now just on an E, which is where your first finger would normally be in first position. But that relationship of notes is still the same. I have my C and G strings, C and G, and then a tone further down from there on the next string, the D string, I'm playing that E to make the major chord. I could do the same on the G string. If I take the G and the D, those two adjacent notes to play a G chord, with my first finger on the A string in a normal first position, I can play a B, which is one tone away in distance further down the fingerboard. Together, that G, D and B make a G major chord. Now you also don't always have to use exactly the same fingers. If I go back to that D major chord, D, A, F sharp, instead of sliding all of my hand forwards to play an E flat chord, I could imagine in first position just substituting fingers to do the same thing. So I could bar the E flat and the B flat with my second finger this time. And then on the D string, where I want to add that note that's a tone away, this time instead of using my third finger, I can use my little finger. It's the same relative shape, E flat, B flat, G. It's the same as having just slid up that shape. I'm just reaching it in first position instead. Sometimes that's useful for speed, other times you may find it easier to step up with your whole hand keeping that major shape. Later, in another video, I'll go through different patterns that you can use for picking those three strings once you've found your major chord, and some bowing patterns as well. But there are plenty of opportunities. You could simply pluck between all three notes. Again, I'm just playing the D major chord here, the D, A and F sharp together. And you can start to have patterns where you're picking in a slightly different way, just to bring out a slightly different character in the music or a different rhythm.